The hotel lobby fell silent as Henry's voice sliced through the calm. "You are not welcome here. Please leave immediately or I will have no choice but to act." What happened next shocked everyone and set off a chain of events no one saw coming. Stay with me. This is a story you need to hear. Before we start the story, comment below and let us know where in the world you're watching from today. And if you find this story impactful, don't forget to subscribe for more. The soft glow of dawn crept over the city as the old hotel stood silently at the corner of a busy street. Its grand facade, a mix of aged stone and ornate metalwork, hinted at a storied past. The cool morning air carried the faint aroma of damp earth mixed with the subtle scent of polished wood and fresh flowers from a nearby garden. The building's tall windows caught the first rays of sunlight, scattering them into 1,000 glittering shards across the marble floors of the lobby. Inside, the hotel exuded an air of both elegance and mystery. The lobby was vast and filled with quiet whispers of history. Every surface, from the intricately carved reception desk to the plush, worn-out chairs, spoke of decades of secrets and memories. Soft, classical music played from hidden speakers, its gentle notes mingling with the distant hum of the awakening city. As the day began, the scent of fresh coffee from a small counter blended with the lingering aroma of old leather-bound books from a modest reading nook. At the heart of this refined setting worked Henry, the hotel receptionist. He was a young man in his late 20s with a neat haircut and eyes that held both a spark of youthful ambition and an unspoken sadness. Every morning, Henry arrived before the first guest, his footsteps echoing in the silent corridors as he prepared for another day of routine and unexpected challenges. He moved with a quiet precision, straightening the chairs, dusting the polished surfaces, and checking that every detail in the lobby was perfect. Yet beneath his calm exterior, there was an inner turmoil he kept hidden, a struggle between the lessons taught by a strict upbringing and a growing uncertainty about the world around him. Henry's background was a tapestry of unspoken secrets. Raised in a household where tradition was revered and honor was a code, he had always believed that his role was to serve and maintain the dignity of the place he worked. However, there were moments when a dark shadow of prejudice, instilled by outdated beliefs, would flicker across his mind. He often wondered why certain guests stirred uneasy feelings in him, feelings he couldn't fully explain. Even as he polished the counter or greeted early arrivals with a practiced smile, he felt as if the hotel itself was watching him, silently judging each decision he made. One crisp morning, as the hotel began to fill with the soft rustling of newspapers and murmured greetings, the grand glass doors at the entrance opened with a quiet chime. In stepped Malik, a man whose presence immediately altered the rhythm of the day. Malik's deep, steady gaze and measured steps exuded confidence and calm. He wore a simple but elegant suit, and his smooth, dark complexion shone warmly in the natural light. Every movement he made was deliberate, as if he carried the weight of experiences that had taught him both hardship and hope. Henry's eyes met Malik's briefly as he approached the reception desk. There was an unspoken tension in that moment, a subtle clash of worlds. Henry's heart pounded, not from fear, but from a mix of uncertainty and a long-embedded bias that he struggled to understand. Malik's presence was magnetic, and even before any words were exchanged, it felt as if the air around them thickened with the promise of an unexpected story. "Good morning," Henry said, his voice measured and courteous, though there was a slight tremor of something unnameable behind his words. "Welcome to our hotel. How may I help you today?" Malik's response was calm and respectful. "Good morning. I have a reservation under the name Malik Thompson," he replied, his voice even and confident. There was an ease in the way he said his name, a sense of self-assurance that made Henry pause. For a moment, Henry's thoughts tangled between duty and a lingering, inexplicable discomfort. As Malik waited while Henry checked the reservation on an old computer system, the receptionist's mind drifted to memories of his childhood, stories told in hushed tones about the family legacy that had always surrounded the hotel. Henry's father had been a man of strong principles, and his mother had whispered that their family had always held a secret connection to the very place they now served. Henry, however, had never been made fully aware of the truth. He had only been taught to respect the guests, to follow orders, and to keep his own feelings in check. Yet, on mornings like this, he felt a stirring deep within him, a sense that his own history was intertwined with the stories of those who passed through the lobby. The soft murmur of conversation from nearby guests did little to ease the tension that built within Henry. He recalled subtle hints from his colleagues about strange occurrences in the hotel, unexplained events that were never discussed openly. There were whispered rumors of hidden rooms, long-forgotten family secrets, and betrayals that had once rocked the foundations of the establishment. Although Henry had dismissed them as mere gossip, he now felt a prickling at the back of his mind, as if the day would reveal more than he could ever imagine. Henry handed Malik his key card with a slightly forced smile, but inside, he wrestled with conflicting thoughts. "Your room is on the 3rd floor. If you need anything, please let us know," Henry said, his words trailing off as he watched Malik's calm nod. The guest's eyes, full of quiet assurance, seemed to carry a silent message that went beyond the mundane act of checking in. For a few moments, silence reigned in the lobby. Henry busied himself with routine tasks, yet his mind could not stray from the encounter. As he arranged magazines on a nearby table, he found his thoughts wandering. He questioned why Malik's presence unsettled him so, even though he knew it was unworthy of the respect he was supposed to show. There was something about the way Malik carried himself, something that hinted at both vulnerability and strength, that forced Henry to confront his own biases. Deep down, Henry wondered if he was capable of change, if the hotel's silent, ancient walls held lessons that he was yet to learn. Meanwhile, across the polished floor, Alice, a gentle and observant clerk, noted the exchange from her station. Her warm eyes and kind smile belied a keen intelligence. Alice had worked at the hotel for many years, and over time she had seen many faces come and go. She had learned to read the subtle signals that passed between the guests and the staff: a raised eyebrow, a hesitant smile, a flicker of uncertainty in an otherwise confident gaze. Watching Henry, she felt a mixture of concern and hope. She knew that the hotel had a way of revealing hidden truths to those willing to look deeply. Sometimes she thought the hardest lessons are the ones we refuse to see in ourselves. As the day progressed, the hotel filled with more guests, each adding a note to the symphony of life that played out within its walls. The background chatter, the clink of cutlery in the dining area, and the distant laughter from a family gathering in one of the lounges all formed a backdrop to the unfolding drama. Henry moved from one task to the next with an almost mechanical efficiency, yet his mind was never far from that initial encounter with Malik. Every so often, he would catch a glimpse of a reflective surface, a mirror behind the reception desk, the polished wood of a side table. And for a moment, he would see not just his own face, but a collage of memories, questions, and the faintest hint of destiny. The sensory details of the hotel became a character in their own right. The soft hum of the air conditioner, the faint creak of old floorboards, and the rhythmic ticking of an ancient clock in the foyer all contributed to a feeling that time itself was layered. In the quiet pauses between the rush of daily life, one could almost hear the murmurs of the past, whispers of betrayal, love, and long-buried secrets that had shaped the lives of those who had walked these halls. Throughout the morning, Henry's internal struggle deepened. He recalled lessons from his youth, memories of evenings spent with his father, who had once told him that pride could blind even the most honest heart. Those words echoed in his mind as he sorted through mail and answered phone calls with a steady, practiced tone. Yet, each time his eyes met the quiet determination of a guest like Malik, a part of him recoiled in shame and confusion. Why do I feel this way? He wondered silently, grappling with a prejudice that felt both alien and deeply ingrained. At one point, as Henry was restocking the brochures near the reception area, he heard a gentle voice call out from behind. It was Alice. "Henry, are you all right? You seem a bit lost in thought," she asked, her tone filled with genuine concern. Her words, soft as the touch of a feather, anchored him momentarily to the present. He forced a smile and replied, "I'm fine, just thinking about the day ahead." But her knowing eyes suggested that she sensed more than he was willing to share. Alice, who had spent years absorbing the unspoken stories of the hotel, knew that every guest and every moment carried the weight of history. She quietly mused to herself, "Sometimes the walls have more to say than people do." She then returned to her work, leaving Henry alone with his swirling thoughts and the ever-present hum of the hotel around him. The hours passed slowly, each moment marked by the interplay of light and shadow across the lobby. Henry's routine was interrupted by sporadic phone calls and brief interactions with guests, each encounter leaving behind a small ripple of impact on his soul. Yet, the memory of Malik lingered, a reminder that life was full of surprises and that every action, no matter how small, could set in motion a chain of events that might unravel the very fabric of one's existence. By midday, the hotel's atmosphere had subtly shifted. The early morning serenity gave way to a buzz of activity, and the once quiet corridors now echoed with footsteps and low murmurs. Henry found himself drawn to a window overlooking the bustling street, his eyes following the movements of people who, like him, carried their own hidden stories. In that moment of quiet reflection, he began to see the hotel as a microcosm of life itself, a place where beauty and cruelty, hope and despair, were intertwined in ways that defied simple explanation. In the midst of this internal quiet, a series of small details began to accumulate in Henry's mind like the soft patter of raindrops before a storm. There is a misplaced book on a side table, its cover worn and faded, that hinted at a story of lost love. A painting in the corner, slightly askew, captured a scene of both joy and sorrow. A family portrait that seemed too real to be just a decorative piece. These seemingly insignificant details added layers to the day, as if the hotel was subtly urging him to look beyond the surface and question what he had always accepted as truth. As the afternoon light shifted to a warmer hue, Henry found himself wrestling with a quiet disquiet. He recalled his father's words once more, words about honor and the responsibility that came with knowing one's true self. The memory was bittersweet. In his heart, Henry felt the stirrings of regret for the brief, unthinking moment when he had hesitated at Malik's presence, when a bias he had not fully understood had clouded his judgment. It was a fleeting feeling, easily dismissed in the bustle of everyday tasks, but it left a mark that he could not erase. While Henry pondered these thoughts, the hotel continued to operate as if in a well-rehearsed dance. The guests moved gracefully through the halls, staff members exchanged courteous greetings, and the quiet efficiency of the place belied the undercurrents of emotion that ran deep. In the midst of it all, Malik's departure from the lobby had left an indelible impression. Even as he settled into his room and disappeared into the hushed corridors of the hotel, Malik's presence seemed to echo in every corner. Henry's day, which had begun with a sense of routine, was now colored by the subtle awareness that something significant was about to unfold. There was an unspoken promise in the air. A promise that the hotel, with all its hidden stories and layered emotions, would soon force him to confront parts of himself he had long ignored. The gentle buzz of conversation, the distant clink of cutlery, and the steady beat of the clock all served as a backdrop to a day that was anything but ordinary. As the shadows lengthened and the sun dipped lower in the sky, Henry remained at his post, lost in thought and the quiet turmoil of his conscience. He had no inkling that the events of the day were only the beginning of a much larger revelation, a secret tied to the very foundations of the hotel. In the faint glimmer of twilight, as the lobby lights cast soft reflections on the marble, Henry's mind raced with questions about legacy identity and the thin line between duty and prejudice. There was a lingering question that hovered in his heart. What would it mean to discover that his own life was more entwined with this place than he had ever imagined? The thought was both exhilarating and terrifying. He had always seen himself as a mere caretaker of the hotel, a humble servant to a grand institution. Yet in the quiet corners of his mind, there was a seed of doubt, a tiny spark that whispered that the truth about his family and his role in the hotel was waiting to be uncovered. It was a truth that might challenge everything he believed about himself. In these moments of introspection, Henry's eyes often wandered to the old portraits that lined the corridor outside the lobby. Each portrait, with its dignified subjects and stern expressions, seemed to hold a piece of the past. They watched silently as the day unfolded, bearing witness to generations of secrets, betrayals, and moments of quiet redemption. Henry felt as if the eyes in the portraits were trying to tell him something, a hint of an impending change, a foreshadowing of the twist that would soon upend his world. The day drew to a close with a soft murmur of activity as guests settled in for the evening and the hotel staff began their nightly routines. The lobby, now bathed in the warm, golden glow of evening lights, looked both inviting and enigmatic. Henry, though physically present and dutiful, found himself deeply absorbed in the swirl of his inner thoughts. The memory of Malik's dignified presence, the subtle hints of hidden histories, and the quiet disquiet that gripped him all merged into a single, compelling feeling that something was amiss. In that quiet hour before nightfall, Henry paused at the reception desk and allowed himself a moment of vulnerable introspection. He wondered aloud, as if speaking to the silent room, what if I am not who I think I am? What if the legacy of this hotel holds truths about me that I have never dared to face? The question hung in the air, unanswered and heavy, as if the very walls of the hotel absorbed the uncertainty with solemn understanding. There was a delicate beauty in that moment of vulnerability, a recognition that every person, no matter how firmly they believed in their own identity, could be on the brink of a revelation that might shatter their carefully constructed world. Henry's inner conflict, once a hidden shadow, was now beginning to take shape as a force that might drive him to seek answers in places he had long avoided. As the clock's steady ticking merged with the soft strains of the evening music, Henry resolved, even if only in a whisper to himself, that the coming days would force him to confront the truths he had kept buried. He did not know what revelations awaited him, only that the delicate balance of duty, prejudice, and personal legacy was on the verge of being disturbed. Outside, the city continued its gentle hum, unaware of the internal storm raging within a single young man behind a reception desk. In that charged moment, the hotel seemed to breathe with anticipation, its old bones creaking softly as if acknowledging that every secret had its time to emerge. And though the day was ending, Henry sensed that the quiet beginnings of his personal journey were just taking shape. The whispers of the past, the murmur of forgotten histories, and the stirring of a conscience long asleep all converged in a silent promise of change. Even as the night settled over the hotel, blanketing it in a serene darkness, the questions that had taken root in Henry's heart grew louder. They mingled with the soft echoes of footsteps in the corridor and the distant hum of a late-night engine outside. The gentle uncertainty that had marked the day was transforming into a quiet determination, a resolve to seek out the hidden truths of his life, no matter how painful they might be. For now, the hotel remained a sanctuary of both beauty and mystery, a place where the past and present coexisted in a delicate dance. Henry, the dutiful receptionist, was poised on the threshold of a revelation that would not only challenge his beliefs, but also redefine the very meaning of identity and duty. In the calm before the storm, as the final lights dimmed and the ancient clock ticked on, the stage was set for a journey that promised both heartbreak and hope, a journey that would force him to face the deepest parts of his soul and the legacy that had quietly shaped his existence all along. And so, as the quiet night deepened and the hotel settled into a peaceful slumber, the echoes of the day's events lingered in every corner. The soft rustle of curtains, the gentle whisper of the wind through slightly ajar windows, and the distant murmur of the city outside all carried the promise of an unfolding drama, a drama in which every guest, every staff member, and every silent portrait held a piece of the puzzle waiting to be revealed. Henry, caught between the certainty of routine and the unsettling pull of truth, could only wait in the quiet dark, his heart filled with questions and the unyielding hope that tomorrow might bring clarity to the secrets hidden within the grand old hotel. The following morning, A heavy silence hung over the hotel, as if the building itself bore the weight of what had transpired. Henry woke with a troubled heart, every beat echoing the memory of yesterday's events. As he stepped into the quiet lobby, the soft light of dawn seemed to illuminate not only the polished marble floors and worn leather chairs, but also the deep, unresolved conflict that stirred within him. Outside, the city was just beginning to stir, a gentle bustle of early commuters, the distant hum of traffic, and the cool caress of the morning air. Yet inside, the hotel felt suspended between two worlds, one of familiar routine and one of emerging painful truths. Henry's thoughts were a tangled mess as he made his way to the reception desk. Every surface, every sound, from the rhythmic ticking of the old clock to the faint strains of the early radio, reminded him of his responsibility and the legacy that pulsed beneath the hotel's elegant exterior. Across the lobby, Malik moved quietly along the corridor. Despite the rejection he had experienced the day before, he maintained a dignified calm that belied the hurt inside him. Malik's steps were measured, and his dark eyes carried a quiet sorrow mixed with resolve. He had chosen to spend his morning in solitude, seeking refuge in a small corner of the hotel's lush inner garden. The soft scent of blooming jasmine and the gentle murmur of a trickling fountain provided a stark contrast to the bitter taste of betrayal he now carried. As the day advanced, a series of small, charged incidents began to unravel the calm facade of the hotel. In the dining area, a group of guests gathered around a table, their hushed voices rising in tension as they discussed the earlier confrontation. A sharp comment from one guest, an unkind remark about how a guest did not belong, echoed through the room and soon spilled into the corridors. Henry, busy attending to his duties, couldn't help but overhear the murmurs. The words stung like icy needles, and with each passing minute his inner conflict deepened. By mid-morning, an unexpected disturbance in the lounge pulled Henry away from his routine tasks. A guest had complained about a disturbance near the windowed seating area, and upon investigation, Henry discovered that Malik had been engaged in a quiet conversation with a visitor from the street, a brief, intense exchange that seemed to carry more weight than ordinary pleasantries. When Henry approached, the soft murmur of conversation gave way to an uncomfortable silence. "Malik," Henry said, his voice measured but edged with a tension he could no longer contain, "I was told there was some disturbance here. Can you explain what happened?" Malik's eyes met Henry's with an expression of calm defiance. "I was simply speaking with a friend. There was no disturbance, only a moment of shared concern," he replied, evenly, his tone both respectful and firm. Yet behind Malik's measured words, Henry could sense something more, a hidden depth, perhaps even a secret that lay buried beneath calm exteriors. In that moment, Henry's own doubts and internal prejudices, long simmering under the surface, began to claw their way up. A restless anger churned within him, fueled by a mixture of unspoken biases and the pressure of maintaining an unblemished routine in a place steeped in history. As the conversation lingered, a nearby guest's outburst shattered the fragile calm. "This kind of behavior cannot be tolerated," the guest exclaimed, drawing the attention of others. In the charged atmosphere that followed, Henry felt himself being pulled in two directions. The rational part that insisted on fairness and the darker side that clung to outdated notions of decorum and privilege. In a moment that would alter the course of the day, Henry's inner turmoil overtook him. "Malik, I'm sorry, but I can't allow this behavior here," Henry said, his voice rising with a mix of authority and an emotion he scarcely recognized, anger. "Please leave the premises immediately." The words struck Malik like a sudden, icy gust. For a heartbeat, time seemed to freeze. Malik's face, usually so composed, registered shock and hurt. "I did nothing wrong," he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper, yet carrying a quiet strength that defied the accusation. But the decision had been made. With a heavy heart and trembling hands, Henry pressed a button on the old register, initiating the process that would mark Malik's departure. In that excruciating moment, as Malik gathered his few belongings and slowly stepped toward the exit, the entire lobby seemed to hold its breath. The sound of his footsteps on the polished floor faded away, leaving behind a silence more oppressive than before. Later that afternoon, the repercussions of that fateful decision rippled through the hotel. The usually unflappable Alice, who had long observed the subtle undercurrents of emotion among both guests and staff, found Henry sitting alone behind the reception desk. Her eyes, warm yet filled with quiet reproach, met his as she approached him with measured concern. "Henry," she said softly, "what you did today, it was not just a simple mistake. It feels like you've let your own inner shadows decide for you. How would you feel if you were in Malik's shoes, turned away because of something you could not control?" Her question hung in the air, and for a long moment Henry was silent. The truth of her words seeped into him like a slow, painful realization. His hands, still trembling from the earlier confrontation, now clenched around a small, mysterious envelope that had arrived at the desk earlier that day. Sealed with dark wax and bearing no return address, the envelope had beckoned him with a promise of hidden truths. He recalled how, in the quiet solitude of the staff room, he had read its elegant, cryptic message, a message hinting at a legacy and a secret connection to the very hotel he served. Sitting there with the letter spread open before him, Henry's mind raced. The words spoke of a proud heritage, of a time when the hotel was more than just a place for travelers to rest. It was the heart of a family, built on ideals of unity, honor, and love. Now, in the wake of his rash action, those words resonated with a bitter irony. How could he, a man whose blood carried that very legacy, allow prejudice and old wounds to dictate his actions? The guests in the lobby now whispered among themselves. Some expressed shock at the unfolding drama. Others looked on with a mix of pity and disapproval. Each murmur, each sidelong glance, added weight to Henry's growing burden of regret. What if he never forgives me? He thought, his heart heavy with the knowledge that his actions had set off a chain reaction far beyond a simple mistake. Meanwhile, outside the hotel, Malik had found temporary shelter on a quiet side street. The cool, evening air offered him little comfort, yet in his solitude he gathered his thoughts. Despite the pain of rejection, Malik's dignity remained intact. He knew that strength was born of adversity, and his calm determination shone through even in these trying moments. Sitting on a worn bench beneath a flickering street lamp, he quietly mused, "What would I do if I were in this situation again? How can I rise above this injustice?" His reflective questions, though silent, were a testament to his inner resilience. Back inside, as the day wore on into an evening thick with tension, a striking figure entered the lobby. The heavy front doors swung open with a resounding creak, drawing every eye. A tall man, cloaked in shadows, yet exuding an undeniable air of authority, stepped inside. His measured pace and the quiet intensity of his gaze commanded attention without a single word. For a moment, the murmurs hushed, and the entire room seemed to pause in anticipation. Without announcing himself, the stranger walked directly toward Henry, who stood rooted behind the reception desk, unable to tear his eyes away. There was something deeply familiar in the stranger's face, a quality that resonated with the very essence of the hotel's long-forgotten history. The man's eyes met Henry's, and in that silent exchange, an unspoken challenge was issued. A challenge to confront the past, to acknowledge the legacy that had been hidden for so long. Alice stepped forward, her voice barely a whisper as she addressed the stranger. You are one of us, aren't you?" she asked, her tone a mixture of awe and gentle reproach. The stranger's nod was subtle yet firm as he replied, "I am. I have come to remind you that the hotel is more than a building. It is a living testament to our family's history. And tonight, a grave mistake has been made." Henry's mind reeled as the stranger's words sank in. The message was clear. The incident with Malik was not just an isolated act of prejudice, it was a symptom of a much deeper, long-buried conflict. "What do you mean?" Henry managed to ask, his voice trembling with uncertainty. The stranger's eyes softened for a moment, revealing both sorrow and wisdom. "Our family's legacy is built on honor and respect. For generations, This hotel has stood as a beacon of unity and fairness. Yet there have been times when pride and prejudice have tarnished that legacy. Today, you have taken a step that could unravel everything if you do not find the strength to make amends. Ask yourself, Henry, do you wish to be remembered as the man who let old biases dictate his actions, or will you choose a path of redemption? His words struck deep, and for a long moment, silence reigned in the lobby. The weight of the stranger's message, combined with the earlier events, pressed down on Henry like a physical force. In that silence, a reflective question seemed to echo through the corridors. What would you do if you were forced to confront the darkest parts of your own soul? Haunted by the stranger's challenge and Alice's compassionate plea, Henry felt the slow but sure beginning of a transformation. Yet, even as a fragile resolve took root within him, the damage of his earlier actions could not be so easily undone. The hotel's walls, steeped in decades of history and hidden betrayals, seemed to whisper that redemption would come at a steep price. In the hours that followed, the hotel became a stage for quiet reckonings. Staff members exchanged worried glances and low, urgent whispers as they navigated the transformed atmosphere. In a small, dimly lit back room, a group of trusted employees gathered around a battered wooden table. Their conversation was hushed but intense, filled with recollections of past wrongs and a shared desire for healing. "We cannot allow one act to define us," one of them said firmly. "Our guests come here burdened with their own stories. This hotel has always been a place where secrets eventually surface. It is time we face those secrets and allowed the truth to set us free." Alice, deeply moved by the discussion, felt a renewed sense of purpose. She knew that Henry was suffering under the weight of his mistakes, and she resolved to help him find the courage to seek forgiveness from Malik, from himself, and from the legacy that bound them all. "Henry," she murmured as she left the meeting, "you have the power to change the course of this day. Remember that the strength of our family lies in our ability to learn from the past and forge a better future." Lost in his own thoughts, Henry returned to his small private office behind the reception desk. The mysterious letter lay open on the desk, its elegant script now a painful reminder of the secret legacy he had long ignored. Each word seemed to pulse with the heartbeat of generations, urging him to confront the truth of his own identity. "My family has always been a part of this place," he whispered to himself, "and now I must honor that legacy by making things right." In a desperate bid to reconcile his actions with the ideals he had once believed in, Henry decided he had to find Malik. With each step he took toward the front doors, his heart pounded louder, and the faces of the hotel's guests, some filled with judgment, others with a glimmer of hope, seemed to follow him with silent expectation. Outside, the cool night air wrapped around him as he stepped onto the quiet street. Every sound, from the soft patter of distant footsteps to the low hum of passing cars, reminded him that the path to redemption would be neither swift nor easy. Under the flickering glow of a street lamp, Henry paused and looked into the dark, searching for Malik in the indifferent night. The internal questions that had tormented him now demanded an answer. What would you do if you were in his place? How can I undo this act of betrayal? The uncertainty was palpable, and the night seemed to offer no easy answers. Only the promise that the journey toward truth had only just begun. As the hours turned and the chill of the night deepened, Henry resolved that at the first light of dawn he would search for Malik and attempt to bridge the gap that had formed between them. His footsteps, heavy with remorse yet driven by newfound determination, carried him further down the quiet street. Behind him, the hotel, steeped in secrets, legacy, and silent admonitions, stood as both a sanctuary and a reminder of the cost of old prejudices. In that lingering darkness, with every reflective thought and every hesitant step, Henry began to understand that redemption was not found in a single act of apology, but in the willingness to face one's inner demons. And as the promise of a new day loomed on the horizon, the unanswered questions of betrayal, pride, and the enduring possibility of forgiveness echoed in his mind. What would you do if you found yourself at such a crossroads? Could you overcome the shadows of the past to embrace a future built on truth and understanding? For Henry, the night was long and full of regret. Yet within its depths lay the fragile hope of a chance to honor a family legacy by transforming pain into a path toward redemption. In the dim light before dawn, Henry stepped out into the cool, quiet street, his heart heavy with remorse and uncertainty. The soft hum of early traffic and the gentle rustling of leaves in the night breeze were the only sounds that accompanied him as he walked away from the hotel, a place he had always thought he knew, but which now held secrets he was only beginning to understand. Every step felt weighted with the burden of yesterday's mistake, a mistake that had already shattered the peace of his soul. Henry's mind raced with images of Malik's pained expression, the hurt in his eyes still haunting him. He remembered the moment when he had raised his voice and turned Malik away, driven by a bias he had never truly questioned. Now, with the cool night pressing in around him, that decision felt like an unforgivable betrayal, not just to Malik, but to the very values Henry had been raised to honor. He had spent the long, sleepless hours of the night reading over the mysterious letter and replaying every moment of his actions. The letter, with its elegant script and hints of a storied legacy, had stirred something deep inside him, urging him to seek the truth about his family and the hotel that had been their home for generations. Determined to make amends, Henry retraced his steps from the hotel toward the part of town where he had last seen Malik. The street was nearly empty, illuminated only by a few flickering street lamps that cast long, uncertain shadows on the pavement. Every footstep echoed with the possibility of redemption or further disgrace. As he walked, he repeatedly asked himself, "What would I do if I were in Malik's place? How can I ever undo the harm that has been done?" After what seemed like an eternity of wandering, he finally found Malik sitting on a worn bench under a struggling streetlight. Malik's posture was upright, his gaze fixed on the dark horizon, as if searching for answers in the silence of the early morning. The hurt in Malik's eyes was unmistakable, and a deep sorrow had taken hold. A sorrow that spoke of a trust betrayed and a dignity wounded. Henry approached slowly, his voice trembling with both regret and hope. "Malik," he began softly, I'm sorry. I was wrong. I let my own fears and prejudices guide me, and I hurt you. I cannot change what I did, but I want to make it right." For a long, charged moment, Malik said nothing. The silence between them was thick, filled with the weight of unspoken pain and unanswered questions. Finally, Malik's voice broke through, low and steady yet laced with deep hurt. "Henry, your words come too late. I trusted this place, a place that should have been a haven for all, and you turned me away. How can you expect me to believe that your apology is genuine when you let old shadows rule your actions?" Henry's eyes filled with tears as he struggled to find the right words. "I know I cannot undo the past, and I know that trust is not given easily. I feel ashamed for letting my family's old ways blind me to what is right. Please let me try to explain why this hotel, our family's hotel, has always been meant to stand for something greater." Before Malik could reply, a soft sound of footsteps interrupted their tense exchange. Out of the darkness emerged a tall figure, cloaked in an aura of quiet authority, a man whose eyes held centuries of wisdom and quiet sorrow. The stranger's presence was commanding yet gentle, as if he had come bearing the weight of long-held truths that were meant to be revealed. "Henry," the stranger said in a measured tone, "and Malik, I believe the time has come for you both to understand what this place truly represents." His voice was calm, but carried a firmness that left little room for denial. "I am Samuel, a keeper of our family's legacy, and I have come to remind you of the principles upon which this hotel was founded. For generations, our family has stood for unity, respect, and a deep commitment to truth, principles that should have guided every action taken within these walls." Henry's heart pounded as Samuel's words resonated with him. He had always known that there was more to his family than the mundane routines of a receptionist's life, but he had never dared to fully embrace that possibility. Now, as Samuel spoke, it became clear that the hotel was not just a building or a place of work. It was a living testament to a legacy of honor and compassion. Samuel continued, his gaze shifting between the two men. Henry, you have been entrusted with the daily operations of this hotel, but more importantly, you have been given a heritage that is meant to guide you. Your family has owned this establishment for over a century, and with that ownership comes a duty to protect and uphold the values of fairness and inclusiveness. In turning away Malik, you not only harmed an innocent guest, but you also betrayed the very essence of what our family stands for. Henry's voice broke as he tried to respond. I never knew. I never realized that our family's legacy meant so much more than what I saw every day. I acted out of fear and ignorance, and now I am lost in a sea of regret. Samuel stepped closer, his expression softening with empathy. Regret is the first step toward redemption, Henry. But you must now choose. Will you allow this mistake to define you, or will you take this moment as an opportunity to honor the true spirit of your heritage? His words seemed to vibrate with an urgency that demanded a decision. Malik, who had listened in silence, now spoke with a quiet intensity. And what of me, Henry? I came to this hotel seeking a place to rest, a refuge from the world's harshness. Instead, I was met with rejection. Can words of apology erase the pain, or is there more that must be done? His question hung in the air, a challenge to the very core of Henry's remorse. At that moment, the early hints of dawn began to break over the horizon, bathing the street in a soft golden light. It was as if the new day was urging both men to embrace the possibility of change. Henry knelt down in front of Malik, his eyes glistening with sincere contrition. I cannot erase the pain I caused you, but I promise to spend every day proving that I can be better, to honor the legacy that I now understand is mine. Please, Malik, let me try to mend what I have broken. A long silence followed as Malik searched Henry's face for any sign of insincerity. The hurt was still there, deep and raw, but so was a hint of hope, a hope that maybe, just maybe, redemption was possible. I need to see it with my own eyes, Henry, Malik finally replied, his voice steady but low. Show me that the man I saw today is not the man you truly are. Let your actions speak louder than your words. Samuel nodded approvingly. The path to redemption is often paved with difficult choices and even harder truths. Henry, come with me to a place that has been hidden from view for many years, a room that holds the records and memories of our family's true legacy. There you will find the proof of the ideals that have guided us through the ages. The three men made their way back to the hotel, the early morning light growing stronger with each step. Inside, the atmosphere was different from the warmth of the day before. The hotel, with its time-worn walls and storied corners, seemed to hum with anticipation, as though it too were eager for the truth to be revealed. Samuel led them through a narrow corridor that Henry had never noticed before, a passage concealed behind a heavy, ornate door in a quiet wing of the hotel. As they entered a small, dimly lit room, Henry's eyes widened in disbelief. The walls were lined with faded photographs, yellowed letters, and ancient documents that chronicled the history of his family and the hotel. There, in a glass-fronted cabinet, was an old ledger and a series of documents bearing the family crest, a crest that Henry recognized from childhood stories, though he had never fully understood its meaning until now. Samuel spoke softly. These records date back over 100 years. They tell the story of our family, of the hardships we endured, and the values we held dear. It was never meant to be a legacy of exclusion or pride, but one of inclusion, courage, and the relentless pursuit of justice. Every generation has faced its own demons, and every generation has had to choose between the easy path of prejudice and the harder, nobler path of compassion. Henry's fingers trembled as he reached out and touched one of the faded letters. He could see the familiar handwriting of his great-grandfather, a man who had fought for equality in times when such a stance was dangerous. The words leapt off the page, A plea for unity, a call for understanding, and a commitment to welcoming all with open arms. Tears welled in Henry's eyes as the magnitude of his mistake sank in. He had betrayed not only Malik, but the very legacy of his ancestors. In that quiet, sacred space, the truth became undeniable. Henry's family had built the hotel as a sanctuary, a place where every guest was meant to be treated with dignity and respect, regardless of their background. The records made it clear that the hotel's doors had been opened to many who were shunned by the world outside. And yet, in one fateful moment, Henry had forgotten that sacred promise. He turned to Samuel, his voice raw with emotion. "I understand now. I understand what I've done and how I've strayed from the values that should have guided me. I must make this right, not only for Malik, but for myself and for the memory of those who came before me." Samuel placed a firm hand on Henry's shoulder. "The path ahead will not be easy, and forgiveness is a process that takes time. But the first step is always to face the truth, however painful it may be. Now, you must return to the lobby and offer your sincere apology to Malik, not as a servant, but as the rightful heir of a legacy that demands justice and compassion." Henry's resolve hardened as he left the hidden room. The corridors of the hotel, now bathed in the full light of morning, seemed to whisper encouragement. He retraced his steps to the lobby, where a small group of staff members and a few guests had gathered. Drawn by the earlier commotion and the unmistakable tension that hung in the air. Among them stood Malik, his eyes fixed on the entrance, guarded yet hopeful. Taking a deep breath, Henry stepped forward into the center of the lobby. His voice, though quivering at first, soon gained strength as he addressed everyone in the room. "I stand before you today, not as the man I once was, but as someone who has learned the true meaning of our heritage. I wronged Malik and betrayed the legacy of my family by allowing prejudice to guide my actions. For that, I am deeply sorry." There was a pause as the crowd absorbed his words. Malik's eyes searched Henry's face, seeking the sincerity that Henry now desperately tried to convey. "I cannot undo the pain I have caused," Henry continued, his voice rising with emotion, "but I promise to spend every day proving that I can be better, that I can honor the legacy of equality and compassion that was built by those who came before me." At that moment, the hotel itself seemed to hold its breath. The old portraits on the walls, the gentle ticking of the ancient clock, and even the soft murmur of the guests all merged into a singular heartbeat of anticipation. Malik stepped forward, his expression a mix of guarded hurt and tentative hope. "Henry," he said slowly, "for forgiveness to mean anything, I need to see change, not just in words, but in every action you take from this day forward. Will you truly let go of your old ways and embrace the values that this hotel stands for?" Henry's eyes shone with determination as he met Malik's gaze. "I will," he declared firmly. "I will make this right, not just for you, but for everyone who believes in the true spirit of our family. I promise to honor the legacy of love, respect, and unity that this hotel was built upon." As the weight of his vow settled over the room, a quiet murmur of approval rippled through the assembled crowd. Samuel watched with a gentle smile, knowing that this was only the beginning of a long journey toward healing. Alice, ever the compassionate observer, stepped forward and placed a reassuring hand on Henry's arm. Her soft voice echoed in the quiet lobby. "Today marks a new chapter. Let our actions from here on out be a tribute to the values we hold dear." Over the following days and weeks, the hotel began to change in subtle but profound ways. Henry worked tirelessly to rebuild trust with every guest, treating each person with the dignity and respect that his ancestors had once championed. He sought out Malik at every opportunity, learning from his pain and sharing in his hope for a better future. Slowly, the deep wounds of that fateful day began to heal as genuine acts of kindness and understanding replaced the bitterness of the past. The hotel's corridors, once echoing with the ghosts of old prejudices, now resonated with a new energy, a vibrant, hopeful pulse that came from people willing to learn from their mistakes and embrace the promise of redemption. Henry often found himself pausing by the old portraits and the hidden records, reflecting on the journey he had taken. The family legacy that had once been a distant, abstract idea now burned bright in his heart, a constant reminder that every day was an opportunity to be better than the day before. In quiet moments, when the hotel was nearly empty and the soft notes of the piano drifted through the halls, Henry would sit at his desk and write down his thoughts, as if to ensure that no lesson would ever be forgotten. He chronicled not only his own transformation, but also the stories of those who had suffered under the weight of prejudice and found healing in the light of truth. His writings, filled with raw emotion and honest introspection, soon spread among the staff and guests alike, inspiring others to look within and challenge their own biases. Malik, too, found solace in the unexpected friendship that had grown from the ashes of conflict. Though the pain of that day had left its mark, Malik discovered that forgiveness was not a sign of weakness, but of immense strength. Together, he and Henry began to work on community projects that brought people from all walks of life together, bridging divides with shared experiences and mutual respect. Their journey, marked by difficult conversations and tearful reconciliations, became a living example of how the deepest wounds could one day give way to the most profound healing. In the soft twilight of a cool autumn evening, as the hotel's lights cast long, gentle shadows on the ancient stone walls, Henry gathered with Malik, Samuel, Alice, and a small group of staff in the quiet courtyard behind the hotel. They sat in a circle on weathered benches, the crisp air filled with the faint scent of wood smoke and the promise of renewal. Henry spoke slowly, his voice filled with reflective calm. Tonight, we honor not just the legacy of our family, but the legacy of every soul that has ever walked through these doors. We have learned that trust, once broken, can be rebuilt with time, patience, and most of all, love. As he spoke, his eyes met Malik's, and in that silent exchange lay the unspoken understanding that life was a continuous journey of learning and growth. Malik nodded, his expression softening as he added, "It takes great courage to face one's mistakes and even greater strength to make amends. Our past does not define us. It is our choices today that shape our future." Samuel, his gaze steady and wise, leaned forward and said, "Let this gathering be a reminder to all who listen. Every action has its consequences, and every heart carries the capacity to change. Our legacy is not built on the shadows of prejudice, but on the light of compassion and the willingness to learn from our errors." In that moment, the courtyard seemed to breathe with a quiet power, a silent promise that redemption was always within reach. The gentle murmur of voices, the soft clink of porcelain cups, and the steady rhythm of heartfelt conversations created a tapestry of hope that spread far beyond the walls of the hotel. As the night deepened, Henry stepped away from the circle for a brief moment of solitude. Standing beneath the vast star-studded sky, he allowed himself to fully absorb the magnitude of what had transpired. He thought of the countless stories held within the hotel's walls, each one a testament to human frailty and the potential for transformation. In that quiet space, he asked himself, what would you do if faced with the chance to right a wrong that has haunted you for years? How would you find the strength to change, even when the path ahead seems shrouded in darkness? The question was not posed for an audience alone. It was a call to his own heart, a reminder that the journey toward redemption was one he must continue every day. Henry knew that there would be moments of doubt, times when the weight of his past might threaten to pull him back into old habits. Yet, as he gazed up at the infinite expanse of the night sky, he also saw the boundless possibilities of forgiveness, both for himself and for those he had wronged. The following morning, with the sun rising in a blaze of golden light, Henry returned to the lobby with a renewed sense of purpose. His apology to Malik had not erased the scars of that difficult day, but it had opened a door through which understanding and growth could flow. In the months that followed, the hotel became a living example of transformation. Guests began to share stories of reconciliation and hope, and the staff, inspired by Henry's journey, embraced a culture of inclusiveness and respect. Every day, As Henry prepared the reception area and greeted new arrivals with genuine warmth, he carried with him the lessons of the past. He had learned that every person who walked through the doors of the hotel carried a unique story, and that it was his duty to honor each story with kindness and empathy. The legacy of his family, once a distant ideal, was now a living, breathing reality, a reality that demanded not just words, but consistent, heartfelt actions. In quiet moments at the end of the day, when the hotel's corridors were bathed in the soft glow of evening and the gentle strains of a piano echoed in the distance, Henry would reflect on the events that had reshaped his life. He understood now that betrayal and regret were part of the human experience, but that they could also serve as catalysts for change. Each mistake was an opportunity to learn, to grow, and to rebuild trust, both with others and with oneself. As time passed, the story of that fateful day became woven into the fabric of the hotel's history. A reminder that even in the face of deep betrayal, the possibility of redemption remained ever present. Henry's transformation resonated with everyone who heard his tale, inspiring many to question their own preconceptions and to seek a deeper understanding of what it truly means to be compassionate and just. Now, as the hotel continued its long tradition of welcoming all with open arms, a quiet but profound shift had taken hold. The legacy of the past had been reinterpreted through the lens of hard-won wisdom, and every guest who passed through the doors was greeted not just as a visitor, but as a valued part of a larger, shared journey. Before closing the day, Henry looked out through the large front windows at the bustling street beyond. The faces passing by, each with their own hopes, dreams, and struggles, reminded him that life was a tapestry of intertwined stories, each one deserving of respect and care. With a deep breath, he turned back inside, resolved to continue walking the difficult path of redemption with unwavering commitment. To you, the reader, I ask, what would you have done if faced with the crossroads of pride and compassion? How might you change if you discovered that the very foundation of your life was built on ideals you had long forgotten? Share your thoughts and reflect on the lessons of this journey, a journey where the search for truth, forgiveness, and understanding is never-ending, and where every new day offers a chance to become the person we truly aspire to be. In the soft glow of another dawn, as the hotel prepared once again to welcome a world full of possibilities, the legacy of compassion and unity lived on. It was a legacy not just written in the faded letters of old documents, but in the hearts of those who dared to learn from their mistakes and to embrace the transformative power of forgiveness. And so, with every sunrise and every heartfelt apology, the story continued. A story that challenges us to see beyond the surface, to confront our inner shadows, and to find the courage to change for the better. Share your thoughts and ask yourself, what would you have done in Henry's place?